Hi, everyone. Welcome. So excited to be here and appreciate your patience while I figure out technology. As someone who's building a tech company, maybe I should know, but hey, first time for everything. This is our first time officially streaming to YouTube and Instagram. So thank you for bearing with us while we figure out all these little nuances. But so officially welcome, everyone. My name is Britta, and I'm the founder of Jasper, a community built for anyone navigating life after losing a pet. I started Jasper after losing my own dog, Jasper. And to say it was the most devastating experience of my life is an understatement. There really are no true words that can give the amount of weight that this loss feels. And what was more shocking to me was the lack of support and understanding, not just for the tools and resources out there, but that this is categorized as disenfranchised grief and that people just really don't know how to support you, which is what inspired all of this. And I am so honored to be joined here tonight by Dr. Sarah Hoggan. She has spent more than 20 years as an emergency vet. She is a two-time TEDx speaker on pet loss grief, and she is Jasper's chief veterinary officer. We're so honored to have her part of the community, helping to lead the charge in us eliminating the isolation that people feel when navigating this loss and giving them a true place to land. So welcome, Sarah. I am so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here and always feel very humbled by by everything you have accomplished with Jasper, everything we are accomplishing with Jasper. It's incredible to just be a part of it.
And we are only at the beginning.
Yes.
It's the most exciting part. But we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions, and we will keep an eye out too for additional questions as they come in. But let's start with the big picture because so many of us in this room have been told, like myself, probably like you, Sarah, in one way or another, that their grief is too much. Why does losing a pet hit so hard? And why does the world still treat it like something that's just small?
There are multiple things that fit under that. The first reason that the world treats it as small is because it's a form of disenfranchised grief. What that means is that it is not a recognized form of grief that has a defined societal pattern of behavior for people to follow. If you lose your spouse, your parent, your child, your sibling, you know that you typically have to have a funeral, have an obituary. Those activities have the effect of drawing people close to you because they see in the paper that your parent died and they immediately get on the phone or send you a card and say, "Oh my God, I loved your mom. I'm so sorry." So they validate that loss. They give you support. They bring the community to you because intrinsically grief is individual and grief is isolating because everybody's grief journey is their own. Nobody can do it for you. And so with a disenfranchised grief, there aren't societal norms. There isn't a checklist of things to go through that help you recognize kind of mile marks along the journey. And there aren't societal norms for people to know what to do. And in fear of doing the wrong thing, people too often do nothing. They get analysis paralysis and they do nothing. So then you're further isolated. So the reason that this is still such a disenfranchised form is because traditionally the role of animals in human society has been more along the lines of like a tool or a helper. Like, the horse pulled the plow, the cow got you milk. They had a different role. Now, as society is modernizing, their roles as tools for most people is diminishing. Certainly, service animals are still incredibly essential to people's daily functioning, but that's the majority of the relationships. More often than not, it is purely a love based. I love you and you love me, and you make me filled with joy and happiness every day. So that's why you share my life. And so for the people who have that kind of relationship, of course, pet loss grief is crushing. For people who don't have that kind of relationship because they didn't get to have pets growing up, because they've never really invested in a pet, they may still treat them as a tool. Like, you're a hunting dog, you live outside in your pen. When we go hunting, you help me hunt, and then you're done. Some people still have those kinds of relationships with their animals. So it isn't as recognized as other forms of grief yet. And that's why it is a form of disenfranchised. The loss is real, the loss is valid, but society hasn't caught up to everybody who recognizes the value of the human animal bond, can transcend that of a master and a tool. So that's one reason that it's disenfranchised, but that's another reason why pet loss grief is so different, because grief is intrinsically isolating, and then you don't have any markers along your journey to measure your forward progress, and you don't typically have a mechanism to bring others close to help support you through this. And the other thing is for adults, our relationships with our parents and our siblings are quite different, because we typically live independently at that point. Whereas your pet's relationship with you is very intrinsic to your daily functioning. You get out of bed, and a lot of times they're right there. Yes, your spouse is there, but it's a little bit different. And then your pet is giving you markers through the day. Oh, it's time to feed you. Oh, it's time to walk you. Or this is the time of day where you get kitty candy. Or if you're the bird, this is the time of day when I open the doors and all the light comes in, and you get to sing and enjoy the beauty of the day with me. And so those are special moments. Those moments have their own level of intimacy, and they build in your daily life a lot of happiness and structure. And so when you lose them, you lose that happiness, you lose that structure, you lose that reason to get out of bed in the morning. And if you are someone who lives alone, you develop a touch hunger, because they were someone that was your primary source of physical comfort. Skin is the largest organ in the body. We respond to touch. We're a social species. Animals very much fulfill that need, the weight, the softness, the warmth. And when that's suddenly gone, you develop touch hunger.
I remember when you explained this to me the first time, it unlocked so much for me. I think I'd shared with you, and most of my friends and family know, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed or sad or angry, kind of any big emotion, my first instinct is I need a hug. I want a hug. And Jasper fulfilled that for me. I was the person who lived alone. Once he was gone, I realized I had never lived alone before, because I was with my family, then I was in college with roommates, and then I had Jasper. And not having him there, just that weight. I had a good friend suggest to get a weighted stuffed animal, and it helped me sleep, because the physical presence, I was missing it greatly. And I remember when you explained touch hunger to me, it was this big unlock, but again, not something that anyone spoke about, that anyone acknowledged to me. It wasn't brought up. I mean, it took me a year and a half to realize it. It's just not something talked about. And that's such a huge component. And you kind of touched on this, but it brings me into my next kind of question / statement. So many people quietly confess that they grieved a pet more than they grieved a person. So is that normal? And does that kind of speak to that unconditional relationship that people had?
It's 100% normal to feel that way. And it's a multifactorial reason. Again, you may have had a difficult or a challenging relationship with the human that you lost, be they a parent, a sibling, a friend. The relationships are just different. You also may have had challenging relationships with humans in the past, and your pet may have been the closest one to you. When you have lived a life that has got challenges in it for whatever reason, having one person, and that person is potentially a fur person, who looks at you and fur or feathers or scales and looks at you with eyes that say, you matter so much to me, and I think you are perfect. That's where you get that in your life. That's your source of love. And so when that's gone, of course you're going to miss that. How could you not miss that? Also, human beings can articulate if they have a compromised quality of life. They don't feel good, they're sick, they're tired of whatever illness they may have been battling. Also, potentially human beings can do a lot of self-destructive behaviors that can precipitate whatever event it may have been that ended their life. Our pets are very much dependent on us. And so it gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a sense of daily joy. It gives us a sense of belonging. You know, I'm hers. She's mine. And there's just no question in it. There's no disloyalty. There's no ulterior motives. It's, you make me happy every day and I love you to bits. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, it's very common. And I think you could say it's normal in a lot of circumstances to miss your pets more than a human being that you lost.
It makes sense. I mean, Jasper looked at me like I hung the moon every single day. And no matter how terrible of a day I was having, I could just look at him and say, well, it can't be that bad. I can't be making that many mistakes or going down the wrong path if like he's here and he's so perfect. And it just, and I'm smile sharing that because it's, that bond is so important and deep and not something that you can ever replicate. But thank you for shining light on that. I did want to, so we got quite a few questions actually about not just us, but about them, our pets, what they understand and how and if they grieve themselves. So Katie had a question about the other animals in the house. When the pet who passes away goes out that one last time and never comes home, do the other pets have any idea like what's happening, or do they understand? Do we know? Do we not know?
I think that, first of all, I definitely think animals grieve. I have really no doubt about that, because I've seen it exampled too many times. I have seen it when, first of all, I've had euthanasias where the family brought the other pets to be present, and they can absolutely recognize the difference between their friend who is alive and their friend who is not alive. And what I have typically seen animals do is they will kind of engage with them before we give them a sedative, the euthanasia solution. Once they have passed, usually a family member kind of has the, go over, go look at your friend, and they will kind of sniff them and then take it back. And then they don't necessarily engage with them again. A lot of times then they act kind of like they're invisible. So they definitely seem to notice the difference between I'm alive and I'm not alive. When I have had families who've had pets that passed away or that left to go to the hospital and just never came home, a lot of families describe them as searching. So just every inch of the yard, trying to get into the backyard shed, even though the dog didn't spend time in there, just searching and searching. Cats patrolling the house and kind of yowling, caterwauling, looking for their friend. So I definitely think that they grieve and they search, and they can also recognize, I think, if they have a housemate, certainly, who's terminally ill, who's not doing well, because they obviously smell differently. If they smell differently to us, they smell differently to each other, and they can recognize the disease processes. And in the wilderness, if you have a social animal like a wolf, when there's one that's failing, they wander away from the pack. They choose to leave the safety of the pack, and the pack doesn't go after them. The pack says, okay, you go by. And that is kind of nature's version of euthanasia, because if you're a social animal and you leave the safety of the pack, a predator is going to find you. But what that does is it takes your suffering away, but because you now fed this predator, it enhances the safety of the pack, because the predator is not going to continue searching for food.
Right. Wow. As you were speaking, this memory popped in my head. And so Jasper was a only child, but I remember going to my good friend Laura's house the first time after he was gone, and her dog Harvey was going into my bag and going in it again, and he was running to every door and corner, and we were like, is he looking for him? Because we were two peas in a pod. It was when I never went to their house without him. And there was some sense of confusion. And then I've heard just so many stories too about the pet kind of maybe the pet that's still with you taking on some of the roles of the pet who's gone. Like maybe, Brett lost her cat Franny, and she noticed her cat at home started kind of taking on more of like the cuddling and stuff, which is just interesting because maybe they just notice, okay, I need to start to fill in this gap. But I believe that they know and they recognize and they unfortunately understand, which is so much more pain for us to carry too.
Well, it's, death is an unfortunate reality that we face, and we can rationalize it and we can explain it to children, to others. We don't have the language potential to explain it in a meaningful way to our pets at this point in time. I don't know that technology is going to ever get there. So what we have to do is we show them in the ways that we can that their friend is gone. I've had families where after the patient was euthanized, I take a towel and rub it on the patient a lot to transfer their scent and have them take it home so they can give that to the housemate, that so they can smell that smell. And then as that smell fades, they can kind of understand as much as we have the capacity to explain it to them.
So So Stephanie asked a question, and she shared a little story to kind of preface it, that the night before her dog passed away, she was restless and then, kind of just not herself, and then climbed up and held Stephanie's gaze in a long, unbroken stare. And then the next morning, sadly passed away. And she was wondering if maybe that was her dog's way of saying goodbye. And do pets, I mean, it sounds like yes, but do they sense what's kind of happening and coming? Which now I'm wondering that too. I always wondered for Jasper. I felt he understood. There were just some looks that felt so powerful that I felt like he understood what's going on, but curious your perspective.
So I can tell you what I've seen and what I've felt. I can explain it to the best of my ability. Can I give you the textbook or the journal that proves it? No, I cannot. Because I think we're speaking in the areas of the human animal bond that transcend, that transcend what we can prove. So she talks about she was restless, and then she made this incredibly strong gaze, this unflinching, unwavering gaze. I definitely think that that is bona fide. She was telling you in ways that she could. That's one of the things that they talk about with bonding with with infants when you very first have them, is you gaze into their eyes and they gaze back, and that's what helps facilitate that bond. Think about imprinting in in baby animals. The first thing they see is who do I trust and who do I follow. And so it's well documented that a prolonged gaze has a meaningful purpose, documented in nature. So if it is the beginning of a relationship cementing that we're going to be connected in a very meaningful way forever, why can't it represent the transition into the next realm? When I was an overnight emergency veterinarian, I did it for 12 years. Overnight shifts are a little bit different in a hospital just because there's a lot less commotion. There's a lot less people there. And you get to work very intimately with the patients just because it's you and your hospitalized patients, and there may not be as much receiving coming through the door. So you do a lot of hands-on care for them. And if I had a patient that clearly was languishing, I would call the family on the phone and I would say, look, she's not doing well. If you want a chance to say goodbye, you need to get here now. Don't delay. And I would ask the family how long it takes them to get there. And, realistically, how quickly can you be here? And then I would go over to their pet and I would say, I talked to your mom. She's going to be here in 10 minutes. I need you to hang on for 10 more minutes. And more often than not, I saw them hang on until their family got there and they could say goodbye. And kind of to what she was mentioning with that prolonged gaze, I lost my first husband to a prolonged disease. Steve was on hospice in the house. He had a hospital bed, and the animals, he didn't really like them being in his bed because he just didn't feel good and he hurt. But the day that I lost him, I knew that was going to be the day, because we've always had multiple animals, and one had, at this point, he had kind of slipped into a coma. But one would always be in the bed. And if I lifted them out, another one instantly took their place. And I just couldn't keep them out.
Right.
And
Wow.
and that was the only day that ever happened.
I mean, I love to think that our pets are telling us something even at the end. I mean, I'm certain in my heart, my body, everything, that Jasper hung on for me. I was in the middle of freezing my eggs, and I know that he powered through to be there for that process because I was doing it all on my own. And I distinctly remember there was a shift in how he looked at me. It was almost like, I'm here, I'm doing it, but thank you for taking care of me. To there was just this look one day that, and I remember my vet, Dr. Shelley, who I adore, she said, Britta, I know your bond with Jasper. There's going to be a moment you look at each other in his eyes and you'll know, your heart will break and you'll know. Because she understood that connection, and there was a moment. And I think it wasn't just me knowing, it was him knowing too. It was him saying like, hey, this is time. But they're incredible. They're incredible.
Right.
The bond's incredible. So I have no doubt in my mind that they're always trying to teach us something or tell us something until the very, very end. And I love that they refuse to let your first husband be alone in those last moments. Like, what a beautiful, meaningful act that they did.
Yeah, they did their job as they saw it. And, and when I lost my magic dog, Buster, I could feel him letting go of me as clearly as if he was holding onto my hand and released it. And I can't prove it to you, and I can't point it to you in a textbook. But what's really critical to remember is that doesn't make it any less real. There are things that we feel that are real, and you don't have to explain it to anybody else, and you don't have to prove it. And if somebody wants you to prove it, then all that tells you is that this person probably isn't worth trying to talk about pet loss with, because they're not being particularly helpful or sensitive. So you
Does
can
anyone
absolutely
ever like say to you, like, prove that you love your mom or that you love your partner? Like, no one's like, show me proof. Like,
so just because you can't prove something, don't question its validity. If it was real to you, then it's real. And that's all that matters. That was a moment you shared between you and your pet. There is a relationship there that transcends just physical. Love is got more components than that. And love is a form of energy in the universe. And physics tells us that, yes, energy is a constant. So that love didn't go anywhere. That connection is going to live on forever. As long as you hold it in your heart, it is there and it is real. So you don't have to explain anything.
We do not. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit into my least favorite topic, because it's something I still am working on, but also one of the most common themes, difficult emotions that a lot of people deal with. Guilt. It's the one topic that I hear more than anything else at Jasper. Guilt about a decision, about timing, what we did or didn't do, did or didn't see. I mean, every little thing. And this next question specifically comes from Elvira. It's something I can personally relate to. She said it's been over 100 days and she's still haunted by what she might have done differently and whether her own choices contributed to her pet's death. And she asks, how do you even begin to cope with it?
First of all, I want to tell you, Elvira, I'm sorry that you lost someone you love. And I think that, so when we're talking about medicine, you need to understand that, first of all, every single thing in the body is interconnected. And the mistake people make when they don't necessarily understand medicine, and this is not a criticism at all, this is just the challenge of medicine, one of the things that they struggle to teach us in medicine, is that things don't operate autonomously. Every single thing is interconnected. So if you adjust something, so pretend you did a treatment trying to support the kidneys and bolster up the kidneys. That treatment is typically IV fluids. Okay, that means you're dumping fluids into the circulatory system. That's going to have a huge impact on the heart and on the blood pressure. And if they're impacting the blood pressure, then that is going to have an impact on your nervous system and on your brain. And every single thing is interconnected. So when we are looking at things in hindsight, it is normal for us to go back, because when we are feeling emotional pain, it is pain. It is real, exactly as if you were cutting vegetables and slice your finger open. That pain is real. Emotional pain is real. Your body doesn't have the capability to say, well, this is just emotional pain. That's why when you have bad dreams, you wake up and you are authentically terrified, even though it was only a dream. It's because those emotions you feel are real. That terror you felt was real. So when you have experienced something that is incredibly emotionally upsetting and your body says, here's this pain, it goes backwards and it replays every single second of what you did and every single decision, because it is trying to figure out, what did I do that hurt so bad so I can avoid it in the future? And the trap that we fall into, looking through our previous decisions and experiences with a microscope, is you lose all perspective around it. And your heart and your head are speaking different languages, and your heart is saying, I wasn't ready to let him go. So if we had just done this one thing, that one thing would have created a cascade of other things. And you need to first give yourself some grace and recognize that you made absolutely the best decision you could at the time with the information you had. And you weren't operating in a vacuum. You most likely had a set of veterinary professionals around you that were explaining, this is what's going on, and this is what we're worried about, and this is what we think we should do next. You weren't sitting there writing all of the medical orders. You were going along with the experts whose whole job it is and whose whole goal it is to help you. So you don't need to question everything you did with a harsh lens, saying, God, if I had just done something different. If you had changed a variable, then 3 other variables would have changed. So it's not that linear. So you can't just look back and say, gosh, if I had just done this. There would have been so many other things that changed. And you were working with a team that was doing their best to help you. And you don't have a crystal ball. So you couldn't have known, if I had done A, the result would have been B, and my goal is C, so I'm not going to make that decision. And you made the best decision you could with the information you had. So please give yourself some grace. And if there are things that you don't understand medically, reach out to your veterinarian and say, can you just, I'm really wrestling with this. Can you please just help me understand what happened? I just need you to connect these dots for me. And see what they say.
Yeah. No, I mean, first, Elvira, too, I want to mention 100 days is still, from my perspective, still so raw. September will be 2.5 years for me, and I still go on walks and randomly think, Should I have tried that test? Did I give up too easily? Should I have gone for another week? I mean, I have dreams still that he's still here and that I made up that, the euthanasia folks came to my apartment and that he was still somewhere. I had to find him. I mean, these emotions are wild. I've never quite experienced the range of just irrational thoughts, honestly. And that's what they are. Sometimes they are just irrational and you're grasping at straws. And I know for me, it was my sense of taking control. If I can blame Britta, then I have someone to be angry at. And it's easy to be angry at yourself. We were their caretakers. We were there for them through everything. But you're right. We made the best decision at the time with the information we had. And it's also like, it's such a heavy emotional time. I would record my conversations with a vet and listen back and be like, I don't remember even what I said. I don't remember what I said. And I would look back and be confused all over again. But I just share all that because it is so normal to feel guilty. And I remember early in my grief, my amazing friends and family, they would try to explain away my guilt, give me all the reasons why I was an amazing parent to Jasper, which meant so much. But at the end of the day, no one could explain it away. It was just something I had to process and kind of work through personally and reframe and get to that place. And I think that's what I've learned through this and through grieving out loud and just experiencing the grief, that you kind of just have to move through it and acknowledge it and say, this is part of the process. This is, of course, I'm going to feel this heavy emotion. I made an impossible decision that no one wants to have to make. For anyone carrying specifically, did I wait too long or not long enough? Is there a tool, a way, a reframe to someone to help them kind of make peace with the decision?
I think that, first of all, what you need to really understand, and I don't mean understand here, I mean understand here about euthanasia is, sorry, this is Pudge. She's on my lap, and as I'm gesturing, she's trying to grab my hand. It is an act of mercy. You didn't make that decision because of convenience.
Yeah.
If it had been a bladder infection, if it had been something that a week's worth of antibiotics would have cured, of course you would have taken that path. So the decision to euthanize is an act of mercy. So when you're saying, did I wait too long? I think the question is, well, you must have thought that there was probably something that they were still doing okay with. They were still eating. They were still happy to see you. They were still doing their normal activities, cuddling with their other, housemates, or they were doing something that let you see that they still had a source of joy in their life. And so that's why you put off that decision. If you're saying, did I do it too soon? It's the opposite side of that coin. They had to have been languishing. And euthanasia is a kindness. So pretend that maybe they weren't languishing. Maybe they still felt pretty good, but you had an answer. You had an answer that there was something authentically sinister going on. And when you looked down the road that lay ahead, what you saw was a lot of pain and suffering ahead. So if you decided that it's time because I can't bear the thought of you being in agony for whatever reason, not being able to breathe, not being able to walk, not being able to control your pain, those are all valid because, again, it was predicated in mercy. So give yourself some grace. And maybe what you need to do for a minute is pretend to step outside of yourself. Pretend you're a friend talking to this person who's trying to make this decision. What would you say to that friend? Yes, I agree with you. It is time. He is really struggling and he's not going to get better. We know that. We've been to the veterinarian. So it's time to give him some peace. So, and again, this is an area that's completely gray. Are there clear goalposts at each end of it? Yes, but everything in between is gray. So don't fall into the binary trap of this was right and this was wrong. It's not binary, it's all gray. And if you made a decision with their best interest at heart that was predicated in mercy, it's never the wrong decision.
I know. It's such a heavy topic, and I know something so many people struggle with, and I always have you echoing my head. You made the best decision with the information you had, and it's a final act of love and mercy, and you know your pet the best, and sometimes you know when you need to make that decision. But I love the reframe you provided too on waiting. If you did wait, there was probably a reason why. And you saw something that made it feel right, and that's okay too. So thank you for sharing that. I know this is something so many of us struggle with, and we could probably talk for 5 hours or more on this topic alone, but I just want to reiterate one last time to everyone that if you are feeling this intense guilt, whether it's 100 days, 2 years later, 5 years later, I see you, and I just want to validate that it's a real part of this process, and it's nothing to feel ashamed of, because how could we not feel a little guilt when we're their caretakers?
That's actually what precipitated my first TED Talk, is when I would meet people for the first time, whether I was sitting next to them on a plane or a cocktail party. They'd find out I was a vet and they would tell me a euthanasia story, almost invariably. And a lot of these stories were 10 years old. And the person would tell me and get choked up 10 years later because they just hadn't been able to process. And so that's why I did that first talk.
I love that. And if anyone has not watched Dr. Hoggan's TED Talks, please, please, please. They're on YouTube. They're incredible. And I know have supported millions of people through their grief journeys. And I know we'll continue to do that. And can't wait to see how many more people Dr. Hoggan impacts as she continues with this. But I want to move a little bit into trying to now live again, maybe with the guilt, without the guilt. Maybe it's always kind of there, but moving forward a little bit. And the guilt that does come with simply just living again. That first time you laugh, that first time you look forward to something. Michael asked a question that I think so many of us quietly feel, and don't say out loud enough. He simply asked whether he'll ever be able to enjoy doing the things or going to places again without feeling guilty that his dog Bentley might think he's forgotten them.
I think that's an incredibly common feeling. I think that, first of all, I think it's natural to worry that, but I don't think you need to worry that, because you had a really strong connection with him, obviously, or you wouldn't still be grieving and you wouldn't be worrying. The love you had for him is going to hold its place in your heart forever. It's a part of you. And he's a part of what's called a love library. So if you buy a book at the store, you read it, that book becomes a part of you, and then it lives on your bookshelf forever until you physically take that book off your bookshelf and do something with it, whether you move it or you do something with it, but it holds its place on your bookshelf. When you have had an animal share your life that loved you, they take a place in your heart, and they hold that place in your heart just like a book on a bookshelf, as long as you want it to sit there. And at first, when you very first lose them, it hurts. It hurts horribly. It hurts to breathe. In time, the pain dulls, the memories start to cause smiles instead of tears, and it becomes a source of warmth, strength, and comfort as you have those memories come back to you. So, of course, right now, you are in the phase of grief where it just hurts. And you go to those places, and honestly, if you have a micro hallucination that he's there, like you'll swear you see him in your peripheral vision, or you'd swear you heard his bark, or maybe you smelled a smell that was associated with him, that's a normal part of grief. So in time, that is going to be less painful for you. And he would never forget you. Think about if, imagine the animals where there have been, well documented stories of dogs that escaped a family's car on a trip, and they were 3 states away or something like that, and they managed to find their way home. Those are well documented stories. So that was, months of separation, and they found their way home, and they were overjoyed to find their owners. Or the animals that had been separated from their families tragically, and then a microchip, shelter workers like, oh my God, this dog has a microchip, call his family. And the families are reunited months later, even years. They don't forget. He's not going to forget you. People who go away on deployments come back, and at first their pets don't recognize them, and then they smell them, and then they're like, oh my God, you're home. He's never, ever going to forget you. And so he's never, ever going to worry that you're going to forget him. So you can acknowledge that feeling, and you can dismiss it, because there's way too much proof out there. Loyalty is one of the key elements in animals. He's not going to forget you, and he's not going to worry about you forgetting him. It is normal to feel guilty the first time you start smiling and laughing and enjoying going to the park that you two shared. But it's because you are still alive. And after grief, you can decide how much of a life you want to live. Some people suffer a grief loss, and they decide that they're just not going to be happy ever again. And so they build a life around that decision, and they isolate themselves, and they stop contacting friends and family, and they would rather live in their head in the past. And that's their choice. Other people decide that they're going to start to live again. And you take baby steps. And you say, today I just need to go to the grocery store. So I'm only going to have to be brave for an hour. But I'm going to set my grief down because I have to function. And it's called compartmentalization. And what you do is you basically tell yourself, the way I feel is valid, the way I feel is real, but I have to not think about it for an hour so I can go to the grocery store, so I can pay bills, so I can take a shower. And you make a deal with yourself. I'm going to be brave for an hour, and I'm going to function. And then after that hour, I'm going to pick my grief back up. And you can do that, and you just take baby steps. And little by little, it gets easier to function. And it's not easy, it's easier. When grief very first happens, it feels like breathing is work. Convincing yourself to get out of bed in the morning takes a heroic effort.
Yeah.
And that's real. And you're not weak, you're normal. And every person on this call, I would be willing to bet you, or most of us, who have authentically experienced crushing grief, are nodding their heads. Yeah, I remember those days. I still have those days. Getting out of bed took so much. So much. Actually getting dressed, as opposed to just being in my pajamas all day, was another heroic effort. Thinking that I had it within me to be company to somebody else was a monstrous event. I can tell you, when I was in my worst throes of grief, I wanted people around me because I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't really want to engage with them. Like, I kind of wanted someone in my space watching TV with me, but I wanted them to just watch silently.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have the responsibility for anybody else's emotions but my own. So I wasn't a good hostess. I wasn't a good company. I wasn't a good friend. But fortunately, I'm blessed with a strong support network who love me and accept me, and who said, yes, you look terrible. You don't smell great. You're a horrible companion right now. But I'm meeting you where you are, and I'm bringing you a breakfast burrito.
No, it's that sitting, that validation, that presence. And there are many of us, there's many people out there that don't have that support system. And that is why Jasper exists. It's to give that place, because we need that. We all deserve that. And sometimes it can't come from people in our immediate circle or our existing circle, because maybe they've never experienced it before. Maybe they have something devastating going on in their life that's taking their energy away. I mean, maybe also, like, it's good to, I know for me, like, getting to talk to someone experiencing the same exact thing I was, even though our grief looks different. Everyone's is so unique. But those moments of talking and seeing other people nod their head, or that happened to me too, or I feel that too, or that's just like my experience, or I didn't feel that, but this is what happened with me. It's, unfortunately, it always makes me feel a little lighter, because I'm like, wow, it's not just me. I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not experiencing something like differently than everyone else. And it kind of always lets me exhale a little bit. And even I share this with members that join Jasper too, that yes, sharing is so powerful, like sharing your story, what's going on. But listening, absorbing, allowing yourself, even if you can't speak, you can't engage, just hearing that other people are experiencing this, or feeling that sensation of someone else is here with me.
Right.
We're talking about it. We maybe don't even need to address it, but knowing that what I'm feeling, someone's aware of, because that's the other part of this. Like you said earlier, the world keeps spinning.
Yeah.
Things don't just pause when we're grieving. You have jobs, obligations, families, bills. I think a month and a half in, I had a very good friend's wedding, and I'm so grateful I had honestly, the strength and the support to compartmentalize, like you said, and go to that event and be present. And I took my breaks. I took my timeouts. I stepped away when I needed to, but I also thought about the fact that if Jasper were still here, he probably would have traveled to Laguna Beach with me for that wedding, but he would also want me to have fun and be with my friends and embrace it and celebrate their love, because that's what our relationship was all about, love. And so we have to, and sorry.
No, I was going to just say, this is the whole reason we made Jasper, because not only do people need to be supported, but more than supported, they need to be seen. And the difference with that is, like you were saying, my parents would tell me, you did such a good job loving him. You were a wonderful pet mom. You don't need to feel bad. They were supporting you. They were not telling you how silly you were. They were trying very hard to bolster you. So they were supporting you, but they weren't seeing you because they hadn't experienced it. So we're a community of being supported and being seen. Your feelings are valid. We meet you where you are because we have all been there.
Yeah. And one of the most powerful things we've seen unfold in the short time Jasper has existed is these incredible members that joined, inconsolable, the most painful grief experience. And now they're the ones welcoming every new member, supporting them through their grief. And it is such a testament to the fact that, yes, it's unfortunately something that you have had to experience firsthand to be able to truly validate it for people. But I feel privileged every single day I get to be a part of our members' stories and healing journeys, and seeing the growth and the strength built. It's healed me. It's helped my grief specifically. So community is so important. Like, the concept of support groups is not new. Like, we know this, but getting as specific and finding your people, sometimes strangers on the internet that can support us more than in real life people. And that's okay. It doesn't mean your relationships aren't strong or impactful. It's a different kind of support. Just like you probably go to one friend for dating advice and another friend for what healthy meals to cook, and silly examples, but I don't go to, one person for everything, because they're not good at that. They're not good at supporting me with everything. Okay. So this was a topic I'm really excited, a little nervous to talk about, but excited too, because this is something that I've been experiencing the last bunch of months since November. But also, like, letting us kind of wrap up with something a little hopeful. So, opening our hearts to another pet. So, for those who maybe don't know me, I adopted Theo back in November. So a little over a year and a half after Jasper passed away. And I did wait. Waiting was always something I knew was right for me due to many circumstances. But I will very humbly admit that it was challenging, and it's still challenging. I still have my moments. Like you said with the books, Theo is not Jasper, Jasper is not Theo. But it's been hard, but also the best decision I've made since Jasper. It's the best decision I've ever made, and getting to feel joy again and bring that into my life has been so incredible. But there was a lot of fear, and there still is some fear. So would love to hear what you would say to someone who's afraid to love again, afraid to take that risk, afraid to admit that maybe they need that love, they want that love, or afraid that loving again means leaving their pet behind.
So this is a really big topic, and I get asked about this a lot because there's so many components to it. So the first thing is I've had some people say, well, after I lost my last pet, I said I'm never going to have another pet. Okay, so maybe you made that decision. That's fine. You are allowed to change your mind. I'm sure at that moment you 100% felt that way, and you were very sincere in that statement. That's okay. And you can hold on to that statement for as long as it feels valid to you. But once it no longer feels valid, you're absolutely allowed to change your mind. And that doesn't diminish anything. It just means that you're in a different emotional and or physical space. And that's okay. So first of all, give yourself permission to change your mind if you want to. It doesn't make you a hypocrite. It doesn't make you disloyal or anything else. It just means things are different than they were at that moment when you initially made that decision. Second of all, there is in no way that you are cheating on the last pet that you had by finding another pet to love, because the two are separate, and the love you had for your original pet is still holding its place in your heart. It's not that this is a piece of pie, and whoever shares the pie, the pieces get smaller and smaller and smaller. Your heart has infinite capacity for love. So if you want to adopt 13 more animals, you can. And I say 13 because that's how many dogs I have.
Love it.
And it's not that I love one more than the other. They're all different. I'm also one of 4 kids. I got 3 siblings. My mom and dad love each of us differently. It's not that one's better than the other. We're all just different. So it's the exact same thing. The other thing I want you to recognize is if you're thinking about loving again, I want you to look at the next animal, whomever they may be, look through them with their own eyes, meaning they don't know what you've lost. They don't know anything about you. Pets live in the moment. They don't have a lot of foresight. They absolutely live in the moment. If they're feeling joy, they're overjoyed. If they're getting scolded for something, their whole little world is crashing around. So when you are thinking about sharing your heart and opening your heart again, recognize that somewhere out there, there is a kitten, a puppy, a dog, a cat, a bird, a reptile, an amphibian, a fish that is just hoping that there's someone for them. And if you've ever been someone who's gone to the Humane Society or the shelter and you've walked up and down those rows of pets, how many dogs are desperately trying to get your attention? How many cats reach out as you walk past and want to paw at you? Just, they're hoping you're the one for them because they have all this love to give and they're just looking for someone who's willing to receive it. And in my life, when I have lost a pet, it seems like the coincidences line up to where suddenly another animal that needs rescuing comes into my life. And it almost seems like they were sent from the last. Again, not something I can prove.
No, I
Just
mean,
seen it too many times to think it's just pure chance.
I could not agree more. Theo could not be, and I can laugh about it, Theo could not be more different than Jasper. They are polar opposites. And I do believe that Jasper pointed me to Theo. See, I even say their names backwards sometimes, but Jasper pointed me to Theo because Theo is just the happiest dog. Like, people stop us on the street. His goal in life is to say hello to everyone. And I think Jasper knew that I was dealing with grief all day, that I am, on a mission to build this up, but needed a little bit of that playful, joyful energy. I have learned both in memory of Jasper, but also by embracing Theo, that I need to live in the moment. That was my biggest takeaway from Jasper. And what's so unique about this experience, look, there's a lot of paths you can take when you navigate grief. You can stick your head in the sand and kind of ignore it and just push forward. You can say, I'm just going to get through this and try to get back to status quo. Or what I believe is, opportunity is the wrong word, but what can happen out of this, if you give yourself the opportunity, is redefine your purpose. I mean, grief and loss has this way of making us kind of look at how we're spending our time, what our values are, and are we spending our time doing things we love and embracing the moment? And we get to not, it's hard, and it took me many months to get here, but now I can recognize that I'm able to carry things from Jasper forward and still honor him while also incorporating Theo into my life. But I know for me, one of the guilty things I felt, which I can't control, was that I have more knowledge now about pet care. I know better food, better lifestyle choices, but that's also just with science and more options coming up. And it used to really, I didn't take a lot of, Theo had a growth spurt, but I didn't take a lot of photos of Theo when I first got him because I don't have many photos of Jasper when he was a baby. And I felt guilty having more of Theo. And I shared that because now I can look back and say well, also, I didn't have an iPhone back then. We were having digital cameras and I've lost all the cards somewhere, and it was a different life. You didn't videotape every moment. Now you do. That's, an extension of our body now are these, cameras essentially. And I share all that because look, I can now look back and laugh at myself a little bit and say that was silly, but I think it's something I had to process and kind of work through and then acknowledge and say, all right, but I always repeat, Theo's a different story. This is a different season of my life. I moved around a ton with Jasper, and he was so small and easy to bring everywhere with me that it was perfect. Theo never could have handled it. It would have been chaos moving with him. But he's now this season of life where I love making small talk on walks. I loved making small talk at the beach and meeting new people through their pets, and getting to honor that change in the relationship is special. But I think this kind of reminds me too of what I think Michael had brought up, the guilt of moving forward, how to keep the memory alive. I don't know if you have any ideas, but what's helped me is bringing Jasper into the relationship with Theo. And I surprised myself. I let Theo wear Jasper had a lot of collars. He had a collection, but I let Theo wear one of his for a while, and I thought I wouldn't want him touching anything, but for some reason I just went for it. I put it on him and it felt so good. I looked down, I saw this familiar collar on this new dog in my life. Whenever Theo's acting up, I talk to Jasper, I say, Jasper, come on, help a girl out and tell him I'm sorry to wheel your dogs up, but I tell Theo all about Jasper. I say, hey, we're gonna go on this walk. I used to come with Jasper. This is the beach Jasper and I did this at. I think there's ways you can incorporate it, but I don't know if you have any other advice or tips for when you're bringing these new pets in, how to keep the memory alive of the past pet so you kind of get to enjoy both at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's completely natural. And people talk about, well, you shouldn't compare them. It's not fair to compare them. Well, I think that there are ways that you can compare things in a non-judgmental, not derogatory way. Like Theo's black and Jasper's white. That's pretty basic. That's an observation. That's not a criticism. Mm-hmm. It sounds like Jasper was a bit more of a canine introvert. You were his person. The amount of new friends he wanted to make was not double. Yeah, I was going to say, he was like, you're mine, I'm yours. Yeah. That's it. My world is complete. Yeah. Whereas Theo is like, my goal is to kiss everyone I see. And, and so you can have a compare and a contrast, but it's not a criticism. It's an observation. And through that observation, you can laugh about things. And again, you're saying, God, I love making small talk now with people on the beach and talking about their dog. Yeah. And so that's completely okay and acceptable. And, and maybe you're someone who says, well, yeah, I do want to have a new pet, but I want him to be a lot like my old one. Well, okay, you can certainly shoot for that. And that's okay. And again, it's not that it's right or wrong. Or maybe you had a dog and now you want a tiny dog. Or maybe you had a dog and now you want a cat. Or maybe you had a cat and now you want a bird. I mean, again, you're allowed to love as much as you want. And you don't have to fall into these specific lanes or rules about it just because. A lot of people try to pigeonhole you that way. Well, you're a big dog person. No, I'm an animal person. I have 2 cats. I have 13 dogs. I have an entire flock of Canada geese that come and go on my pond. They're not my pets, but I'm very overjoyed to see them, and I enjoy sitting and watching them. So, you're allowed to be whatever you want to be. And maybe that's something that you need to talk to yourself about and say, okay, how do I want myself to be? Or maybe you say, I'm grieving and I love them dearly, but I think I need some time in my life where I don't share it with an animal. Maybe you need to travel a lot. Maybe you need to move for work. Maybe you're in a housing situation that's not conducive to adding a new animal to your life. That's okay. And that's valid. And you're allowed to make decisions and then say, you know what? I think I'm going to make a decision by just not doing anything. And that's valid too. And see where time takes you and see where your life takes you. But if you find yourself feeling lonely and pining, then maybe it's time that you start to reintroduce a fur fix into your life. And you can always start by saying to your friends, I'm really missing my pet. Do you think we could go to the park today and you could bring him along and let's all go for a walk? Let's walk the dog park. Or maybe you want to go to a bookstore that has cats, or go to a cat rescue and just pet them, just have some time with them. You can certainly put yourself in situations where there is no expectation of adoption or fostering present. And that's completely valid. Just to want to have some time with them. I have to travel for my job currently, and when I stay at a hotel, I am crushingly lonely. I will tell you that if I'm out on a walk and someone has a friendly dog, I ask if I can pet him just so I can get the fur fix.
Yeah.
There's no expectation.
No.
It's just a little bit of joy.
A little bit of joy. And a reminder that grief and joy can coexist. It doesn't, I think that's the one thing too, that the misconception that if I'm not done grieving, I can't experience joy. And I think that's what trips up a lot of people. I've even heard comments from people saying, well, if you're still grieving Jasper, should you even have Theo? And I'm like, they're different. Like it doesn't mean I can't love if I'm grieving. I can still miss him immensely and still be obsessed with my life right now with Theo. Those can exist at the same time.
Yeah. Emotions and humans are not mutually exclusive. And right. When people read some of the theories of grief, it makes it sound like it's very linear, like the 5 stages of grief. A lot of people are familiar with that. There's anger and there's sadness and there's bargaining and, they make it sound a little bit like it's the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you stand in this one line, and once you're done in that line, you go stand in the next line. It's not that linear. No. And you can be in multiple stages simultaneously. You can be very angry and be very sad. You can be in denial and be angry. You can completely skip a stage and not have any denial or anger and just go right to the sadness and acceptance and say, yeah, I accept that he's gone, but God, I miss him. Yeah, that's totally valid. And again, if we're drawing analogies, this isn't a pathway. It's not a straight line. It's the ugliest scribble you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And you can't tell where one line intersects or transects the other. It's just a horrible scribble that you have to make it through. And some days you're going to feel really lost in the scribble, and other days you're going to feel like, oh, God, I had a nice straight patch. It's okay. And just know that you're not alone. And what you're feeling, even though it feels incredibly isolated, probably is something somebody else on Jasper's feeling, because we are a grief community. We are here because we see you. We feel you. We all have shared this horrific experience. But the other thing to recognize is it's kind of like brothers in arms. When you go through a war with somebody else, you see horrible things. You feel horrible things. You experience horrible things. But when you experience them with others, it galvanizes that bond and makes you stronger than when you came in. So the friendships, the connections you make on Jasper, or through anyone who's helped you on your grief journey, whether it's a friend, whether it is your veterinarian or one of the veterinary technicians that helped you take care of your pet, It's real. And just recognize that you're not alone. You may feel very alone, but you're not alone. And if you reach out, I guarantee you there are going to be 10,000 hands to catch you.
Yeah.
You're not going to fall.
No. And you wrapped up this conversation beautifully. I'm nervous to blunder it by saying anything else, but it's what you said is so true. And the one thing I will add is when you're on that messy, squiggly, insane line and feel like, I mean, the amount of times I used to say, I'm back at day 0, or I don't feel any better than the beginning, or I'm just back at this, back at go. And having the other piece of this is like, then you have people who can reflect back at you how far you have come. I wouldn't say, one of the most meaningful parts of Jasper that I've experienced is when a member is feeling frustrated. Like, I've been dealing with this for so long. How do I still feel this way? Like, why, I'm making no progress. And I can't wait in those moments to be able to share, but wait a second. Think about these 5 things, how far you've come. You've gone back to work. You've re-engaged in your community. You started working out again. You celebrated the 1-year milestone and said it was a magical experience when you were terrified to even travel to a different state. I mean, it's these stories over and over again, but myself included, it's really hard when you're living it and experiencing it to feel like you're making progress, because what is progress? Like you said, it's not linear. There's no medal you're going to get at the end of like, oh, you accomplished this in 2 years. You won at grief. Like you did it. You made it through. I'm going to miss Jasper every day for the rest of my life. And I will be constantly navigating the grief. I will probably still have moments where the guilt comes back. It's much softer, but it's there, and it peeks its head out, especially when I'm vulnerable and in my feelings. And getting to have other people pick you up when you fall. I mean, I selfishly built Jasper because I needed it. I needed people, I needed connection, I needed support from people who are going through the same thing. And even me getting to show up every day and know that I'm going to have people picking me back up, it gives me the strength to keep going and also not hide from my grief, which is so important. I mean, Sarah, we could talk forever, and we do. And I'm so grateful for you and all the work you've done and continue to do in this space. And I think what you've truly changed is you've unlocked this ability to give us all language for something that is so difficult to put into words, and giving people that voice, that ability to start talking about it. It's incredible. So please don't ever stop what you're doing. And I'm just so honored to have you a part of this. And for I want you to go ahead.
I appreciate you deeply. And I have felt my whole life that veterinary medicine for me was a calling. And I recognized that there was a void in the discussions about euthanasia. It was talked about like it was a dirty little secret, and it's not. It is a kindness we are afforded in veterinary medicine. And So I am just appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this community, and just feel like I'm being true to my calling. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us here tonight or is watching this on replay. Your grief is real, it is valid, and you do not have to carry this alone. If what we talked about tonight resonated, I would love to invite you to join Sarah and I in the Jasper community. It is an incredible place to connect with others experiencing loss, and we support everyone from preparing for loss through living with loss and welcoming new pets to your home and having more of these conversations on a deeper level and just navigating the complicated feelings together. So I just am so grateful for you guys joining us tonight. We will make this replay available on our channel, so YouTube, Facebook. If you have any questions about the community or Jasper, our website's jaspergrief.com, or wherever you're watching this, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, DM us or leave us a comment. Let us know how we can help support you. And I know there were so many more questions that came in tonight that we weren't able to get to. I will collect them all, and we will either do a part 2 soon, or we'll provide some recorded content answering some of these questions, because it's so important for us to recognize from you guys what you need. This is, we want to build this alongside of all of you. This is not something we're building for people. It's how do we build this together based on all of our experiences, because grief is not one size fits all. There's not one way of navigating or processing it. So just know that all of your support, your questions, your comments are very meaningful as we continue to create the safest place for pet loss grief. Thank you all again. I hope you all have a good night or a good morning, depending on where in the world you are. And I hope to see you guys in the Jasper community or here soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.